All right, I'll open up the January 16th DRB meeting to order. Agenda changes?
None.
All right. Review the minutes of December 19th. We want to put that off to the,
No, let's get it done. We don't need a quorum.
okay.
And I had no changes.
Anybody else?
Make a motion to accept as is.
All right.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
We still have a majority of people present, which is sufficient under our regulations.
All right. Up next is Kevin and Don Francis. Final plat review. Been reopened.
Dennis, I might suggest we just actually wait 5 minutes.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
I have issues with the application, so I want to give you as much latitude as we can.
Okay.
Just in our regulations, not with the concept. But.
You want to talk about anything else?
Sure. So I drove up from Virginia on Friday, and it was a driving rainstorm, like 2 inches of rain.
How'd you like
that day? Oh, that was fine. There was a little traffic, and then I spent the night in Connecticut and drove to Vermont on Saturday, and that was.
Who?
The temperature went from 43 degrees in Greenwich, Connecticut, to 16 within about an hour and a half, and just a lot of wet roads to 4 inches of snow I was driving through that was unplowed, driving by in cars that had neither four-wheel drive nor snow tires, and going 30 miles an hour.
Hey, Don.
I can't believe how
Hey, Don.
I came from Essex tonight.
Happy New Year.
A lot of the roads are
How are you?
still in
Yes.
bad shape.
And I'm kind of surprised because everything seems so frozen at this point. I mean, this place is still wind drift, but
Yeah.
it'll probably be better tomorrow with a little.
How's it going?
Good.
How are you? Good.
There's no doubt about it. It's hard to get outdoors.
Hi, Dennis.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. John?
Hi,
Craig?
Rolf.
Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year.
Going to have fat
How are you,
choice.
Grandpa?
Girls, too.
Oh, all right, Grandpa.
Pretty darn good, I'll tell you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fun?
Oh, we got that baby right in the house.
Is that right?
Yes.
Nice.
Well, Lily and Andy are building a
Is
house.
he spoiling you?
They were held up by the DRB for about a year, so they're still living with us.
I
To
hear
say that
that.
I'm pissed at Mitch is an understatement.
All you had to do was draw a straight line, I thought, on that.
Yeah, I
one.
know, for heaven's sake, man. And Waples, yeah, he's another, you know. Oh, it's a good time.
That's great.
It's actually,
Does it?
it's my first grandchild, you guys. So, you know,
He or
I'm
she?
putting socks on
I'm
him.
still probably
It's
10
a
years
boy.
from that.
You're not
I'm
spoiling him.
Probably 15 years older
Yeah,
than
just
you.
come on by.
Boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
And sleeping through the night?
You don't, you know.
Grandparents shouldn't be involved in that decision.
I'm not aware. They're at the other end of the house.
Thankfully. Okay, good.
Yeah. He, actually, the last 2 nights, he slept 8 hours. But nobody's counting any chickens, you know? So, yeah. They have him on an exercise program. I think it's exhausting, the poor boy. No, I'm just kidding.
So he's not obese yet.
No, he's
Does
working
he
on
have to
it.
lose a
He's
pound
working
yet?
on it. He eats like it's quite
Come
something.
back up?
Or so
I
it's
just pulled it
reported.
up on
Yeah.
the Dropbox
Fun, though.
folder.
Yeah.
I'll figure out what that is. Disappearing
Look at
folder.
this, we're going pyramidal now, huh?
Well, this
Mitchy,
is
you're getting really creative.
New layout.
actually, I'll take no credit for the layout,
Yeah,
but
This
John
was
gave us
decreed
a really
before Mitch was here.
John has a good idea, though.
and we're gonna switch it all. We're gonna switch it all around. Actually,
John?
just have two tables,
Mhm.
opposite each other, and make it,
We're
two
talking about the
minute-
tables?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
No, we just have this table.
So he's not expected?
He's not coming. He talked about his illness. Sarah said she was coming in late, and I haven't heard from Dick yet. So, and John Slayson is going to be out of town, so.
All right, well, we could get started, and I think anybody who walks in even late can participate, and should participate. This is, to my mind, candidly, a controversial application or request for the reopening, so I'd like the applicant to have as many board members as possible. But I don't want to stay here until midnight either.
So why don't we get started?
Okay. I fully appreciate that I'm the one holding you guys up from being on the couch
No,
tonight.
don't worry about that.
When I saw that I was the only one on the agenda, I was like, oh, good.
We didn't have a meeting 2 weeks ago, so don't feel obliged to apologize.
Okay. So I appreciate the opportunity to plead the case tonight. I think we can all agree that sometimes language and requirements in a zoning regulation or a subdivision regulation doesn't really anticipate all the different scenarios that might come up in a development like this. So,
Dawn, maybe, I think it might be helpful to me if you just talked about what's out there, what staff may have proposed, and what your response is, rather
Yeah.
than getting into
so Mitch,
kind
is
of
there a
a...
way we can blow up the whole thing?
Sure. we can make-
And I think it really would be helpful if maybe the applicant and Mitch could kind of have a back and forth about really what's going on here and what staff thinks may be required.
Is this close enough?
Actually, I was thinking of the larger view of
Oh, you
the
mean-
entire lot, so I can maybe show you the origins of where we started.
All right, well, that would be just a different drawing, but sure, I can get that.
Right there.
Dick just came in from the Arctic, it looks like. Or were you golfing this afternoon?
Trying to get a little golf in, yeah.
So we've just started.
And I can pull out the plans if you want me to do that.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Maybe it's the contact.
It's this one.
Okay, yeah, that'll work. So originally, when we came in, again, we're just trying to create an additional lot for potentially our children to have at some point in time. This is one of those grandfathered situations where we were going to lose the right to subdivide because of a change in zoning regulations. We weren't really ready or wanting to subdivide, but again, it's important to preserve that option for our kids in the future. So originally, we came into the staff with a proposal to do a very simple division of the property. So that lot 1 would consist of the existing house. It's served by a road coming in off of McGee Hill Road. That's an existing 50-foot right-of-way.
And that front area on the left, that is a private lot?
This is our lot, our entire lot.
So that front area is part of
Part of
yours?
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay.
this entire piece of land.
So what's that vertical line?
Right here,
No, one state to the left.
this one.
Yeah, you're talking
that's the new
Nebraska and Colorado right there.
All right, this
Yeah.
is the new lot configuration right here.
Okay,
Otherwise, the existing property consists of this whole entire parcel,
right.
all right? When we originally came into staff, we were gonna do a very simple, just bisect the property right here. This new lot would have been here with frontage on McGee Hill Road as well as the 50-foot right-of-way. The existing house lot would have been served by the existing right-of-way. Okay?
Yeah.
I think staff, for reasons of, they wanted a
This is
smaller footprint.
that was before my time, so.
Right, they wanted a smaller footprint. They encouraged us to go with a smaller lot. And apparently, your regulations calls for a 3-acre lot in the rural residential district. This is actually, they wanted a smaller lot, so it would take up less area. I think they were concerned about
3 acres would
slopes.
not apply to
R2.
R2. It would apply to
R1.
R1.
if you look at RR2 in the table 1 of your zoning regulations, it says minimum lot size of 3 acres.
It's
It's now-
0.5. It used to be bigger.
Okay, well, I just looked at your regs online, it says 3 acres. Table 1 on page,
Yeah, it's,
So Don, is this still 3
Page
acres?
5,
it's 2.5 acres.
RR2 is 0.5.
The
Is that the new one?
regs I looked at today.
Is that the new reg?
That's
Well,
not
it
the
says
regs that
the
I
rural
looked,
sub, that's like 2 years old.
so that's not the regs that are online.
I would differ with you. That is the ones that are online.
All right, I'll call it up for you, but anyway, so.
So Dawn, I guess I'm lost. That very front portion,
This very
that,
front portion.
that area there
Would
was all
become
part of
part
the
of this.
original property. It wasn't a separate lot in different ownership.
Correct.
So that
This
was all part of your,
the entire parcel.
and your proposal was for,
My proposal.
and I was there, I was there, and I'm just blanking in all of this. So we're carving out what are we, kunai?
So this was before it went to the DRB, all right? Staff said they
This is-
disagreed with bisecting the lot. It would have been lot 1 and lot 2.
With a
We
right of way
said-
across that.
Correct. We want a smaller, more compact clustered lot. And therefore, it resulted in this piece of land. And now it's made this piece of land create the situation where the minimum widths right here are less than the 100 feet.
I'm still trying to figure out why that would have been a problem the other way. I just need make one little clarification. This area over here, when it came to sketch plan,
Yep.
this area here was provided through a boundary adjustment
Correct.
after sketch plan. Just want to make a note of that.
Yep.
I'm actually lost for words as far as why this wouldn't be, a property like this wouldn't be I don't see it as a problem, but.
This was what Alex wanted us to do. So. we
So I'm
abided
not sure
by what
whether that
Alex-
front part is counted as a lot or not.
It is, it's
Deals
part of
with
the,
the-
it's part of the
Yeah,
main
it's-
lot.
Deals with the
It's-
100-foot issue though.
So Greg, this lot, this land is attached and becomes part of the remaining parcel.
It's contiguous by that little
All right,
stretch.
so assume, Dawn, that front part were merged with your proposed development site. Would that in any way change the 100-foot lot width issue? I'm not sure it does.
If you were to
For a couple of
subdivide,
points there.
right, if you were to subdivide it and bisect it just like this, it takes away the entire issue.
Yeah.
Because they just have a right of way across that first lot.
Yeah, that was actually one of the solutions I thought about, but I was under the impression that you wanted that for some particular, that
No,
road
this
there
is
for-
what
Look,
Alex
that makes-
wanted.
I was out there, aren't you by Belchonius?
Yes.
I walked that property 3 times, probably. I probably didn't walk it again for this application. And I have no understanding or recollection of why we would invite this carve-out to make this wishbone type lot configuration.
So, good question,
Well,
and one appropriately asked for Alex.
Well, what was your proposal originally?
My original proposal, again, was to simply bisect the lot like this.
Okay.
And I think Alex wanted a smaller lot created.
And when you mean bisect, that area that you have your hand on now,
Right.
Dawn, would be part of the front lot
This would be
out on McGee Hill
new
Road?
lot 2. This would be the house site.
Okay,
the
you're losing me,
remainder.
Dawn. What was your proposal then?
Again, it
Okay,
was
I'm
simply to-
sorry for being thick.
to bisect it so that you would have lot 1,
Okay, so the lot 1 would
lot
be
2.
out to McGee Hill Road,
Correct.
okay?
That was
And did that satisfy the frontage requirements on McGee Hill Road, or do we have to have development on a private right-of-way?
You would need development on a private right-of-way for the existing dwelling.
You need a development on private right of way, whether
In
it's that
either
proposal
event.
or this one would require development on a private right of way.
Just because one lot over the other has all the frontage.
Exactly. I mean, and it's really no difference between.
So you have no issue with that. I don't mean to go back over fertile, whatever. That possibility of creating one lot on the left, one lot on the right, with the right of way through it is
Yeah.
A-okay.
Wish we had known about it before we went to the extent of.
And that would seem to eliminate the
surveying, but-
100-foot issue, which is kind of decisive in my mind.
Correct.
Would it?
There might still be, I don't know if this.
There
piece
could be a
right
pinch
here
point
was-
up there.
could be 100 feet.
Probably, there might be a,
Oh, no, never
No,
mind,
it
you're cutting
wouldn't
all the way
work. It
across.
wouldn't,
Correct.
yeah, it wouldn't work.
yeah, that's 100 feet.
But did you see, can you bring up the one where you have the property line change?
And then,
You're talking about this particular one?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's talking about basically extending this line going all the way across here.
Correct.
And let me zoom out a little bit here. Actually, that's too far. So basically, and actually, that's right, this is just a small piece of it.
Right, you would, you
I
would
can-
simply have a lot line here, and a 50-foot right-of-way going through the lot.
You'd rather do that than this?
Well, I would have before I went to all the
It sounds like she
expense of
originally proposed
surveying
that.
it.
I
Do you
I
remember
can't
what
speak.
the two lot sizes would have been?
do, and
I can go back and look at what Alex had written. So.
No, it'd be
can
like,
we
it'd
just-
be like 5 and 7 or something.
Sure, yeah,
I mean, roughly in that area.
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and because I've already gone through the expense of surveying it now, I think a case can be made that this does make sense too, all right, in terms of its configuration. It's an existing right-of-way. It's an existing landscape feature. It's an existing historical feature. This road has always been there. It was an old logging road even before we built our existing house some 30 years ago.
It makes no sense from our definition of lots and lot configuration, however. And I'm baffled how we wound up approving this, and I have to take full responsibility for that, because I know I was here for some of those hearings.
But you never saw that lot configuration because staff,
Okay, maybe
as
that's
in Alex,
Part of it.
right, recommended the carve-out of a smaller lot.
do you remember the reasons for that, though? That's the
I
thing.
can pull up,
Because maybe unless we're missing something, then, I don't know.
But we did approve the sketch plan.
well, and my recollection
Yeah,
was that it was
sketch plan,
pointed out.
Basically, I
that
think it was Dawn's iteration after Alex talked her to, into.
No, it's this right here.
correct, you approved that.
What's up here right now, we approved it.
Oh, we did.
Correct.
That's
Well,
good.
with the 100
Right.
foot.
I thought it was pointed out that that was too narrow and needed to be 100, and that when it came back for final, that it was supposed to be 100, and frankly, I didn't stick a ruler on it, I just assumed the spacing had been provided that was, I
But do you
thought,
see the
requested.
property line change right there?
Where?
Right.
You had it up.
You're talking about this.
The red line property.
Right. You see it's not off by, I mean, how many feet is that?
It's less than 40.
What's the width there?
It comes down to about, in this, over, you're talking about this area where I have the hand? It
Yeah,
comes
what
down-
is the width there?
It's like about 62, I believe, or something like that. That's really the most, the tightest point.
So if you were to put the line where the red line is, that would be the 100 foot.
If they put the line right here,
Yep,
that would be, the distance between here and here, and again,
it's 100 feet.
I did this by scaling just to kind of
Okay.
give a general idea of it, but that would be scaled approximately to be 100 feet.
And how
And
about
that
the
would-
other end?
The other end, there's a
Just a
tiny,
little nick.
tiny little nick that'll be on this side. The only thing is just simply, they'd have to put in a 50-foot right-of-way, and I kind of made it centered on the road of just the drawing. This could shift a little bit, and then you just got the points on the center of the right-of-way, which could be shifted around,
Well,
but
they're already gonna have to put a short right away in now.
if they go with this type of configuration, yeah.
So.
Well, even the
Just show-
one they're proposing. Because it goes across their land.
Right, what you're doing is you're making a two-lot subdivision exceedingly complex, because what you're gonna be forcing us to do is, rather than using the existing private right-of-way as a boundary or frontage on a lot, you're gonna be creating the need to, A, for us to get an easement, B, we're not gonna have any control over this piece of little sliver of land, when you might want that for, you know, culverts, ditching, drainage, whatever.
Dawn,
And you've got this little piece right here.
I understand your objections to the proposal by Mitch. I honestly, just as one board member, don't think I have the authority to approve a waiver that you seem to be requesting in your letter.
Right, and
So, and I can tick off a number of reasons why I don't think that it's legally permissible. So I would like to look for creative ways to get around that. One would be you withdrawing that and just acceding to Mitch's proposal, which results in a lot configuration that I still can't imagine that I approve, but I must have, or creatively thinking about getting back to what you seem to have thought was most sensible, which strikes me as most sensible, is kind of uniting those two front properties. If I were a purchaser of the proposed home site that you're trying to vend, I would want to control that front property, and I think it makes it more marketable. So I think from your perspective, economically, it makes the most sense to try and reunite those two pieces into one. And from a planning and development perspective, it makes sense. And I'm happy to do whatever we can to try and make that going forward, knowing we have these deadlines by March of 2018 for this 12-acre subdivision.
so I think in looking at it, we would prefer to have control now over the front part on McGee Hill Road.
So you'd
So-
like to go with Mitch's proposal?
Right,
No, I think she's saying not.
No, she would like to go with Mitch's proposal, just make that 100 feet.
so if I cannot appeal to, and
But
Can I assume that you've read my letter?
you're not gonna, yeah, I read you're not gonna control that front part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I guess,
if we create the 2 acre
oh, you,
lot,
are you the vendor or the owner?
I'm the owner of lot one. and
Okay,
existing
okay,
house site.
all right, so you think you can make well, for whatever reasons, you would like to, as the owner of lot one, trying to sell lot two, you would like to control that front hill area and,
Correct.
okay,
Right,
knowing it, at least under present regulations, could never be developed further.
right. But I guess I
Okay.
understand that you think.
Okay,
you know,
and
I'm
okay, I'm
getting-
going to defer to you on that.
So-
If that's what you want, then we have to, I would like to work with you to make that proposal work, but I don't think a waiver is possible under a regulation. I just don't think it's legally permissible, even if we had the discretion to do it.
Right, so has everybody had the opportunity to read my letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess I'm appealing to the fact that it would make sense, if you look at the lot configuration, for it to go all of the way to the 50-foot right-of-way. And not create this unusual strip of land over which we're gonna have to get easements. And I think when you look at your planning and design standards, when you look at your waiver criteria, where you are in essence creating a waiver because of the lot size. What is the minimum lot size allowed in the RR2 district?
Half an acre.
Okay, according to the zoning regulations I saw, it was 3 acres. In your table 1 of your zoning
No,
regulations.
it's right here.
So, I must be using,
It's RR2.
right,
RR1 is 3.
so online you have a
And that
different-
changed like about 2 years ago. It used to be 3.
All right, so you have an old, when I
I
Google
don't think
it,
so.
it
I
was-
think it's there.
All right, whatever. So you're basically creating a planned unit development in this area by allowing a smaller lot size than, are you not?
But our PUD applications are a very specific process that is
Right.
governed by a different regulation. So I don't think we can kind of bootstrap one size, area, dimensional regulation into another regulation without taking everything.
Right, so you're
Because
taking
if
a
there's
lot
been-
size that's in your zoning regulations and putting it into your subdivision regulations.
Actually,
This is
Well,
a
there's a
subdivision
different-
approval,
Our
right?
subdivision regulations in a number of places very specifically require compliance with the zoning regulations. I'm talking about 5.1, 5.1.3, 6.10.1. There is the waiver provision that you reference in your letter, 7.4 in the subdivision regulations. But even before I read Mitch's staff comment, I had looked at that, and it seems very clear to me that is very narrowly related to waiving specific application requirements, not more general dimensional or substantive requirements of the subdivision regulations or our zoning regulations. So I don't think 7.4 gives us as a board any authority to waive a very specific requirement in our zoning regulations on lot size that we've never waived before.
So,
Not lot size, but lot dimensions or schematics.
right,
And a
When you
PUD happens to be, have a lot of other requirements, like community resources, for instance, and many other ones, which, it wouldn't apply to here. You couldn't be able to grab a PUD
right.
and look at it that particular way.
When you look
And,
at your,
and Dawn, other towns have other regulations, but we have to deal with ours.
I understand. So when you look at the purpose statement for your rural residential district, and I'll cite in your zoning regulations, sections 3.4, it talks about innovative residential designs, clustering, smart siting of homes around compatible site features, variable lot sizes are encouraged to reduce the impact on important natural resources, as long as the overall density remains.
Are we talking about zoning or subdivision?
Zoning, yes. And patterns of development should work in concert with the natural topography and site limitations. So the site limitations are the existing right-of-way, the existing resources. When Alex wanted us to have this particular lot configuration, I think he was trying to reduce the impact of this new lot on all the different natural resource features. At least that was the
Dawn,
argument back then.
I hear what you're saying, but our regulation, 2.5.7, I think it is, says 100-foot minimum lot width. There is no general waiver provision in the zoning regulations for us to basically say, okay, one particular provision can be waived at the discretion of the board. Built within a number of zoning regulations, for example, expansion of non-compliant structures, we have been granted by the select board the authority in our discretion to vary from the requirements of our zoning regulation. But there's no comparable empowerment to us to waive that. We also have the power under Vermont statutes to grant variances from our zoning regulations, but that state statute very specifically applies only to structures, not to dimensional requirements on the definition of lots. So I just don't see that we as a board have any discretion, much less whether we choose to exercise it in this particular instance to grant a waiver. We just don't have a waiver authority in the zoning regulations to dispense with what's kind of etched out in stone. And I don't think 7.4 addresses that at all or deals with that at all in the subdivision regulations.
So I respectfully disagree. And so there's many references throughout the regs that provide for the DRB to use discretion and flexibility in improving lot layouts. One such reference is section 6.1.2, lot layout coordination. It says that private road, in this case, private road, streets should be extended to the boundary line of the tract to be subdivided unless presented by other physical conditions or unless, in the opinion of the DRB, such extensions not necessary or desirable for the coordination of the lot of the subdivision. I also say when you look at this section 2.5.7 that talks about the minimum width and depth dimensions, there is a provision that says other irregularly shaped lots may be allowed at the discretion of the DRB, provided that the configuration allows for reasonable use of the land. I argue that bringing those two property lines to the 50-foot right-of-way is a reasonable use of land, and it allows for development in accordance with applicable setback and lot coverage requirements. Section 2.10 of your zoning regulations. When creating new lots, landowners must have the flexibility to design a subdivision or a PUD that fits the landscape in question. Again, because of the existence of that particular right-of-way and the natural features of the land, it makes sense to extend those two property boundaries to the existing right-of-way. I think there's lots of different references. I'm not going to go through every single one of them in both your zoning regulations and in your subdivision regulations that allow you to have some flexibility and to use some common sense when you're laying out a lot.
I guess I'd like to say, I would agree that this, if it's legal to waive this, then I think it would be a wise choice to allow it.
Let me make sure I understand, Don. When you're talking about the two lines, you're talking about this line
Correct,
and its extension to this point, and this line and its extension to that point.
correct.
And these abut the 50-foot right-of-way.
Correct. Otherwise,
That 50-foot right-of-way is really for the purpose of access beyond that point, and it's for the purpose of access to this lot.
correct.
And you're saying that if this were shaved in this way,
I'm gonna have to get
a
an
new
easement.
easement is required for this strip.
Right. I'll lose control over that piece of land. It might be helpful to have more
This
control.
also would have a 50-foot easement presumably?
It would not need a 50-foot easement if it were extended right to the right-of-way.
Right. But that's the purpose, that basically is the reason why that line is there, it abuts that 50-foot right.
Correct.
What are the natural features you're talking about?
So the natural features are the drainage. Obviously, there's ditching on both sides of this 18-foot to 20-foot dirt road. There is significant drainage that occurs in this area. Obviously, you would want Lot 2 to have control over those drainage ditches. You're gonna probably have a culvert as it meets the 50-foot right-of-way. You're gonna want control over the vegetation.
Okay.
So Mitch, can we approve
Okay.
it as, can we waive?
I don't believe the regulations allow you to. I think it's more of how you want to interpret 2.5.7, but I'd like to respond to that particular comment. The drainage system actually goes into the 50-foot right-of-way of Butternut Lane, right?
Correct.
And the owners of Lot 2 would have the ability to maintain that system that happens to be on Butternut Lane, that's got in the area that comes off of, the beginning of their driveway. Similarly, if they
But
have...
you're gonna have to get easements and,
Well, I'm just simply saying, in the
Right.
area that is, we're not even talking about as far as in the easement, in the area of the actual Butternut Lane right-of-way, there's a portion of that stormwater system that's going to be coming off of Lot 2, that's going to have to be maintained by Lot 2, that's actually in that. And here you have a 50-foot easement, and I just wanted to just state that where I actually placed it, I just kind of made it the center. You can shift it a little bit one way or the other, it wouldn't change anything. But basically, in that easement, it doesn't have to only be an easement for access to Lot 2, but it could be an easement as well to maintain the stormwater system that happens to be there. The same way as Lot 2 would be able to maintain the stormwater system in the
Understand.
50-foot right-of-way of Butternut Lane. So it's something that that could be written that way. You could even make the easement, it's a 50-foot minimum, you could make that easement a little bit wider. You could even write into the deed that the owners of Lot 2 could maintain some of the other vegetation in that particular area as well as obviously maintain a driveway that happens to be there.
just,
So,
if I could just point out again, so instead of a lot configuration like this, that's gonna extend down to the 50-foot right-of-way, right? What you're talking about is you're gonna create this sliver of land in order to meet that 100-foot requirement. That will be controlled, this other side is gonna be controlled by the,
right, it'll be part of Lot 1, yes.
I mean, we're
But-
also supposed to stay away from irregularly shaped lots.
right, and that creates an irregularly shaped lot when you do it that way.
Well, I think
Well,
it's
the
an
whole-
Not much more than the
No,
one that
the
was
whole
already
thing-
there.
The whole thing is irregularly shaped.
Yeah, you missed the first part where
Oh.
her original plan was on the rightmost boundary to just cut the whole thing off. And before it ever got to the board, staff, prior to current staff, had advised against it, and we weren't sure why.
Yeah, so to me, I mean, it's a long time ago, but to me, it's more about an irregularly shaped lot than it is, I mean, I understand we can waive that apparently easier than we can waive a, 100-foot.
It's already in a regular shaped lot though.
Well, we already we must have waived it because we already approved it.
Right, exactly.
Right, and the thing is that's actually irregularly shaped lots mean things that if it has the 100-foot width, if it has the length to width ratios overall that, although actually this is lot 1, I believe is proposed, is larger than 5 acres, so that doesn't apply in that part of the regulations.
To
But
me,
basically to have those type of minimums would keep it from being an irregularly shaped lot by definition.
well, I don't know if that did such a, if we
I
followed
know.
the rules, if that really did such a great job with that. But to me, I mean, the point, I would think that the point of the zoning was to try to keep situations from occurring that make it difficult for landowners. And I can appreciate that we might be setting a situation up that could make it more difficult by trying to keep this. But I'm not, if it's not waiverable, it's not waiverable. mean,
Well,
we're
I
certainly-
think for us to a board to move forward and to help the applicant, we have to make a decision quickly about whether we believe this 100-foot width requirement is waivable. I don't believe it is. I'm speaking for myself. And if we agree as a board that it isn't waivable, then that gives Dawn some clarity about how she might want to proceed. She'd probably have two options then, but I'd like to give her those options if we go in that direction as quickly as possible.
I mean, I guess part of my take on it would be when it talks about, giving flexibility for, features of the land or whatever, to me, that's not some boundary of a right-of-way that was, assigned at some point, maybe arbitrarily, maybe not. It's not about where a man-made ditch was placed. It's about, is there a cliff there somewhere? Is there some, physical feature in the topology of the land that makes something impossible? And then, frankly, basically looking at the elevations there, I don't really see anything in the land structure. And when we walked up the lane, I don't recall anything there that would make putting the property boundary there as something that would impact the lay of the land, the use of the land.
Putting it where the red line is, or
Where the red line is. So moving it in order to get to 100 feet.
Right.
Benefiting.
I don't see it's,
Other than,
I don't see it benefit, well, it's benefiting the fact that it's meeting the rules, but I don't see it hurting anything either.
right, other than you're creating an unusable strip of land between lot 2 and the 50-foot right-of-way.
And how usable is that entire, regardless of what configuration is in, how usable is that stretch of land anyways? Front piece, all of this, it doesn't really have a lot of use.
Well, it's gonna be providing the access to lot 2, at least some of it.
But you're gonna have an
And it
access
still will.
easement, you're gonna have an opportunity
Sure.
in that access easement to maintain all the different things. So,
So I'm
that's a
counting
plus.
noses, and I don't think I've made my case, and so if that's how I can proceed forward with the recommendation by Mitch, let's just do it.
And you prefer that,
This niche is the 50-foot right
yeah,
away.
and I basically, and I wanna state that I centered that on what looked like the center of that driveway.
This
That
is the-
50 foot could shift a little bit, a few feet either which way if you want. I mean, yeah.
and Don, you'd prefer that kind of reconfiguring on the fly, this whole subdivision that probably could get done in time still?
Now that I've gone through the expense of subdividing that smaller chunk out and
Okay, I hear you then.
wanting, yeah,
Okay, all right. So I'd like to work with you on this, but that's the only way I can see going forward for myself.
can I get the sense of the board?
I would agree.
I mean, I know we have the regulation of the 100 feet. I'm not sure I don't truly understand it, but I don't
It's
know what
there,
the,
and
I know,
I just don't
I know,
understand.
I understand.
I don't see where we have the power to waive it or grant a variance.
I mean, if we can't waive
Under a
it, then I
statute.
would say this would be the simpler solution. If our hands are tied
And I
and
don't
we
want to
can't waive
bully
it.
anybody and think we can't waive it, but I just don't. Reading everything, I, as one, just don't see that we have the authority. I'm not trying to
Mitch, you're
overpower
saying-
anybody into agreeing with me.
It's funny, I'm listening to Dawn in some sense. I don't know the history of why that's, remembering that north is to the left, south is to the right, that southernmore line between lot 1 and lot 2, shifting, coming all the way down to the Dunshee property, and just having it as one simple, I don't see that as, I'm trying to figure out in my head what issues might have been there. It's not something I even thought about. It would have been one of the things when I was thinking about possible solutions for you. It was one of the first things, well, why don't they just do that particular line?
That was the
Am I-
original proposal to
But that's
have.
only one end of the box.
Yeah.
And there's a second end.
And the second end right now is that, I mean, the way I just simply looked at it when I reviewed this was you wanted to keep that right away as part of lot 1. And,
In the road frontage, I know, I feel like there was some brought up that why you wanted to keep that.
so just simply on that, what I drew out there was as simple of a solution that I would believe doesn't have much of an effect on your property. Going out and visiting your property, this is a beautiful building site up here. Lake, you got the lake view, you got so many nice things to it. I didn't see how this area down in here is really impacting it. You're gonna be able to have the access that you want, the control, Lot 2 will be able to have the control of the stormwater, maybe even some vegetation. You might want to even write something in, I don't think there's anything to say you can't write into the deed that allows for some type of opportunity for planting and such, Lot 2 on that. But the point, the change in keeping to the regulation shouldn't have much effect at all, if any.
And so,
on that.
just to reiterate, and ask the question again, there's not a clear mechanism to waive this requirement.
Sure.
Not that I can, not that.
Dawn the applicant is saying there is. I am disagreeing with her. I think everybody we don't have legal opinion from
How do we
town
get-
council. Everybody has to reach their own conclusion on that.
I
How do we
wrote
get
a staff
clarity on
report.
that?
I wrote a staff report that went through, you know, the comments that you made.
Yep.
And rather than go through all the different ones, I'll just defer to the staff report that I wrote.
I mean, I've read it, and it's not, I would say conclusive that you can waive the requirement.
To my
Okay.
mind, without.
It's one of there aren't that many like strict zoning that we have, and that's one, I mean, there just aren't that many about lot. I mean, that's one of them.
There is nothing in our zoning regulation that says we have the authority to waive something like that.
You'll be in essence
There is in
creating
your
a non.
subdivision regulation.
There is a provision in the subdivision regulation 7.4 that is specifically in captioned waivers, but to my mind, anybody who reads that would understand that that pertains strictly to certain application requirements and does not grant us plenary authority to overlook anything in the zoning regulations. And to the contrary, there are many things in our subdivision regulations that require us in subdivision approval process to obey the strictures of the zoning regulations.
I'd like to just
Could
simply
I
add,
should I just address that, please?
and then I'll add
So,
something, sure.
in section 2.5.7 of your subdivision regulations, that is the section that deals with minimum width and depth dimensions. It specifically says, other irregularly shaped lots may be allowed at the discretion of the DRB, provided that the configuration allows for reasonable use of the land and allows for development in accordance with applicable setback and lot coverage requirements.
So the way I read that is the 100-foot is fixed. It's a requirement. That final sentence is if you've met the 100-foot requirement, you
And
can
it-
have
and it's
irregular
irregular
shaped
shaped
lots.
lots, yeah.
As long as, at the discretion of the DRB. But I don't read, the discretionary part of that, I don't think applies to the
the
first
100
sentence
feet.
where it
It
says you
requires-
shall have a minimum width and dimension of 100.
And I just want to add that the title of Article 7 in the subdivision regulations is General Application Requirements. So when you're talking about Section 7.4 waivers, it specifically is to general application requirements, not in terms of lots and lot configurations. So it's a different type of thing.
Is a lot size different than a setback?
A lot.
Lot dimensions would be different than a setback,
Right.
in my opinion.
They're
So lot
different, but
dimensions,
often
area
in the same
coverage.
category.
But they have the same type of weight.
But neither deals with application requirements. In my opinion.
So Don, would you like to have us look at legal counsel to see if we can waive it, or would you like to move forward with Mitch's?
I give up. So,
We don't want you to give up,
yeah,
but
I give up. So we'll just go
We just
with
wanna-
the requirement or the configuration done by Mitch. we'll go to the added expense of surveying that line, and call it a day.
I think that's the quickest way to move forward.
Yep.
Now, is this something we can just put in the decision and just have a
We don't have
condition
a
on?
decision.
Yeah, we do.
Put together a draft decision.
We have a draft decision.
Draft decision after this.
It's on your computer.
I went through it all. I did. I saw the staff report. I didn't see a revised draft decision.
Yeah, we have a draft
Final
decision.
plat subdivision
All
draft.
right, well, I'll defer to anybody who's read it and thinks it's consistent with Mitch's analysis.
Well, we'd have to amend it.
Well, you'll have to, well, you can close the decision now and then discuss the draft decision afterwards, or however, you know, that,
Well, we had a draft decision, then we decided to reopen it, right? So maybe I didn't
right, but this
bother
was
to
an
read that.
updated draft decision based upon
Okay.
that was,
I mean, there was a comment in this new one about that there was discovered a less than 100-foot, I think that was like under the findings of facts. And I thought there was something that said about it in conclusion, but
Order for revised plat.
yeah, that it shall
and I
be.
did provide you with that draft decision.
So Mitch, with
Could-
this
could I
draft
ask-
decision, do you think we could approve it with the less than 100 feet, or
No, the draft decision that,
Requires,
not from the last meeting, but from.
This
the-
one.
The one, the last one that I did.
no?
The one in our packet
Order
today.
number
The one that's in
one.
your packet for this meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And it
This was a
includes,
revised plat.
right,
It assumes this one.
right.
Order.
Oops, sorry.
Could I make one suggested change? And that's on page 1, number 2.
Oh, okay.
It talks about proposed lot 1 having 10.1 acres of land, proposed lot 2 would have 2.5 acres. And then it goes on to say the property has approximately 400 feet of frontage. Can we say lot 1
Sure.
has approximately?
Lot one will have approximately, would have, lot, proposed,
So this
lot
was
one
to his recommendation.
would have.
It's basically
Yeah.
requiring.
Okay, I mean, if it's okay with them, I'm fine with,
That's
you
fine.
know, that change.
And I'm just curious, how long does this subdivision approval go for?
1 year.
You
I think.
have up to 6 months to record a Mylar. And then once you have the Mylar recorded,
Perpetuity.
Now, doesn't there be substantial improvement? Or is that
No.
only major subdivision?
I don't. Once you subdivide, it's subdivided.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
our subdivision permits can expire.
They can. You mean,
so,
if
Yeah,
you don't,
that used to be substantial improvement. I thought that was within a year.
because it's fine,
And
I was looking at a
that's
Site
not
subdivision.
plans and stuff like that
Yeah, but
could
I don't-
expire, but it didn't.
Once you
I thought once you
file a
subdivided your
That doesn't
property, I
make
thought
any
it
sense.
it goes into the plat, it goes into the land records, and I thought it was.
Yeah,
No,
that
you can't, well, you
says-
can't do substantial approval without final approvals.
No, I believe it goes for perpetuity.
once the lot is created, is it not forever?
Yeah. Unless they
Why do you need
change it.
improvements?
I don't know.
I don't understand that.
I believe it goes on for, I don't think there was a,
I mean, if you come back to build a house, then you've got to.
Yeah.
And it may be for major
No, you just need to get
subdivisions.
his own
It may be for
Yeah,
major
right.
subdivisions.
Yeah, as long as you've got the building permit and
Once it's
everything else,
subdivided, I think it's done.
you're ready to build.
yeah,
No, there's no requirement for us to build within a certain time frame.
No.
I guess is what
No.
I'm asking.
no, it becomes a separate lot, and, yeah, I mean, no, there is no as far, the only requirement is that you file the Mylar within 6 months. I'm just gonna throw in this, we recommend people with as far as their taxes, to do it after April 1st. So this way here, you get another year of it
Yep.
without being on that. But, with that said, as long as you are, able to record a Mylar within 6 months, then, it's perpetuous.
So we have a draft decision written with your changes.
Yeah, it's one that, the draft decision that I wrote, and put into the Dropbox with this particular,
With the only changes is Don's recommendations on a couple
But I
amendments.
think,
if that's okay with the board.
I think it, again, number 2, it says the property, it implies might be lot 2, when in fact it's lot 1.
I think that's
You
reasonable.
know what, it's always good to get another set of eyes, so thank you for your review.
Well, there's nobody here from the public. Do the board members have any other questions?
I guess at some point we should get clarity on the waiver so we know in the future.
The 7.4.
On another application?
Well, it's never
Yeah.
happened before
Right.
in my 20 years' experience, so.
Yeah, that 7.4 is really applications. But
I'm
then
not sure
again,
that
but you
that
made the
much of a
point as
legal
far as
issue.
maybe looking at the 2.57.
The only other thing I'd suggest is in the future, as you're looking at zoning and subdivision amendments, that you might consider average width lot to depth ratio, so you don't run into this
I
situation.
know we have talked about that as something that's been desirable in the past, because we've had a couple of applications,
Right.
probably before Mitch was here. I think mostly closer to Richmond, where that may have been an issue.
Right.
Yeah,
And
what-
it may make sense.
That's typically the language in other regulations.
You actually have 2 members of the board who's also members of the plan commission who would actually take that up.
That'd be great. Yep,
If they, I can't speak for them, of course, but.
I think this is an unfortunate situation. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of the way it's going to look, but so be it.
So what I don't think I see under the order, unless I missed it. Oh, no, sorry, there it is. Within 30 days of this approval, a plan shall be submitted that shows the proposed, that's the proposed swale. So that's the water flow to the neighbor's property
Right,
to the
that's the
south.
Hazelton.
I don't see, I thought there was something in here about, there it is, very first one. A reverse survey plat showing proposed lot 1 conforming with the 100-foot minimum per section, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's there. What's the trigger for that?
Well, the ultimate trigger, of course, is that the Mylar has to be recorded within 6 months.
Okay, that's what you
Has
say.
to be done within-
Prior to recording the survey Mylar, okay. Okay.
Any other discussion?
I don't think so. I would move to approve, close the public hearing, what there was, and move to approve as amended.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John.
Other business,
Um,
board organization.
Yeah, it just put this on the first meeting. Basically, between January and March of every calendar year, the board is supposed to vote on a chair, vice chair, clerk. And it's usually done at the first meeting in other places. I don't know how it's been done here, but could be done in.
Very loosey-goosey.
Yeah. So if no changes, you might as well, you could do it hypothetically in one motion if you'd like. Just a little bit of housekeeping.
Everybody want to continue serving?
I will continue.
Even though Dennis signs all
If
my
you want
stuff
me.
and I don't get to be the clerk very often, but that's okay.
Assuming I
I'll make a motion to-
haven't got the board in any hot water.
stays as is.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we got the plaques and everything.
You got the plaques and everything, and I think re-engraving those would be
silly to give it up now.
Major project.
I need to make you one.
I would like to commend a thought to the members who are on the planning commission. We don't know what's happening with Hannaford, do we?
Something.
I'll just say that I've been in touch with, I've spoken to some of the people, or I should say I've spoken to one individual, and as far as I know, they're looking to continue.
Okay, my thought is this. My understanding, based on conversations, I think in public meetings, probably where Dennis was present, but maybe not on the planning commission back then, and where Rolf was not a member of the DRB, was this Hannaford application kind of caught the town by surprise because everywhere else in town there had been a 20,000 square foot limitation, or was it 10 or 20, for commercial
20.
spaces.
20.
20. And they didn't do it in Commerce Park,
Just for retail
basically
space.
because,
For retail only. There's a 20,000 square foot limit on retail.
okay, I'm maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but it probably doesn't matter for this purpose. My understanding was, from what was conveyed to me, was the planning commission back when they were dealing with that just didn't think they had to address Commerce Park because they never thought that there could be a 20,000 foot plus space that could be accommodated in there with the wetlands and everything. That turned out to be wrong, evidently, and it's possible Hannaford's may go forward, may get approved, but it's also possible it may fail, and then I'm just commending to the Planning Commission the idea that maybe they ought to talk about whether that same kind of town-wide cap space ought to be extended to Commerce Park, because it seemed to have been the result of oversight
So you don't know
40
what happened
years
last
ago.
night?
I was just gonna say, didn't that all happen last night?
I was barely born then, and I wasn't even living in the town, so.
The planning commission voted to try
Last
for
week.
interim zoning.
This was back in.
No, last
No,
night,
this was
last night. This
last
all
night,
happened
select
Oh,
last
God,
night.
I know nothing about that.
They're
Yeah.
trying to do that.
Oh.
The
I
planning
didn't know it was
What
commission
in
did
the
the select board
proposed
say? 'Cause I
basically-
No,
know I
this is
couldn't
completely,
go.
I had not heard that that was in the
They're
works
trying
at
to
all.
extend the 20,000.
Oh, okay, then obviously it's in the works.
But I don't know
I had
what-
not
But
heard
what
that it was
happened last night? I don't know.
even in play.
I don't
What
know.
did the select board say to it?
I don't know either.
From
In
what I-
either event, I think general opinion is, from what I've read, is it would not apply to a reapplication on the part of Hannaford's.
I'm not saying it would reapply. I don't think it would or could. But it's also possible Hannaford could withdraw
Right.
its application.
Yep.
And.
It would apply though with interim zoning.
Only if they started over, right?
Well, I'm not gonna go there on that. That's too quick a thought for me to, I'm not sure.
I mean,
it
that's
could.
the thought of it.
I'm not sure it could on.
Because I didn't think you could use
applications
interim
that came in.
zoning to stop somebody that had a something in
I'm doubtful
process.
about
There is
that.
no application in process.
They absolutely is.
Well, from
It
what I
hasn't, it
heard,
hasn't,
Their
it hasn't been-
application has not been denied.
Yeah.
The existing permit has been rejected. There's still a application that is, so I'm, Dennis, I'm
I
not
don't
an
know. I just hear.
all-star on this issue. I'm not sure anything could be applied retroactively to Hanford.
I think, though, to clarify your point, as at least the way I understand it, I'm not sure I have it right either. Historically, I think when Commerce Park was created, whenever that was, I think that 40,000 square
In
foot
the 80s.
limit applied at that time. I think the point in time that you're talking about, which is maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, when the Planning Commission considered actively the possibility of reducing that footprint size to 20,000 square feet, that's when what you were just saying previously came into play. They, whether the feeling was, hey, that's not going to happen here, or whether there was legitimate opinions having to do with, hey, 40,000 square feet was perfectly legitimate, that was why Commerce Park was created in the first place, don't really know.
But I do wanna know, do you know what happened last night at the select board, if they rejected that, or if they?
They are looking at the next select board meeting. They're going to be meeting with the attorney for other things originally, but they're going to want to get some feedback, some guidance.
So they're considering.
They're considering it, and even if it turns out that they say, yeah, we're going to go in a certain direction, or decide on interim zoning, they're still going to have to come up and draft something in terms of interim zoning. So
If they're thinking
if
of it.
if they think of that, and again, I think, and again, I'm thinking the second, third hand and such. We could always watch it on VCAM, but it's a mixed opinion. So who knows which way the select board's going to go? All I can say is, if I get an application, I'm going to be looking at it with fresh eyes. So I may tell you, hey, this thing here happens to be great, or maybe say, hey, there's some issues. So I don't know.
As I
Move to
said,
adjourn.
second.